All right, so now we're recording. So I'm talking to you about hosting and developing a home regatta, but I want to kind of give some street cred on this topic, kind of what we've done and why I feel like I can tell you something meaningful on the topic. We started hosting regattas in my second year coaching, and we really enjoyed like not only the events but the benefits it's brought our program. In 2014, we started out local. This is a theme you're going to hear from me again. We pulled together UNC and Duke and our team for the Triangle Tango Regatta. And at this point, it was regatta and clinic. We've continued to host this event annually, although it's moved to late fall now. We started our regatta in coastal, there we go, trying to get to that. We started our regatta in coastal Oriental, North Carolina in 2015. And this is yet again another event we've developed and really grown our connection with an awesome sailing community in Eastern North Carolina. This started out as a single conference event and has since grown into a 2-conference event. And one of my favorite things to do, and one of my most stressful times of the year until the minute the regatta starts. We also recognized that our women's team wasn't getting a lot of competition. So we thought, let's put something on the calendar. So in 2015, we started hosting the Home Women's Regatta in Raleigh. Again, this started small. You know, we have an 8-boat fleet, and you know, we started small and developed it into later a 2-conference regatta. We really take advantage of our geography and connection to Southern Mesa just by travel time. This has not been without challenges, though. Our first year turned out to be a one-on-one battle regatta between us and USF, because the week of the regatta, I had 4 teams drop. So it was us versus USF, and thankfully, you know, most of our audience in the university space is football and baseball and basketball oriented. So they're used to like a one-on-one game. So we none of them were the wiser that it was just us versus South Florida. And props to Allison and her team for setting up awesome sailors to be with us that weekend. So that was our women's regatta. It's grown into, I think, a pretty good event on the fall women's calendar. We started our storm pack. Well, we did a regatta that was sort of impromptu, but when it was Hurricane Florence that hit North Carolina in 2018, and we were hearing from Oriental just about damage and all over Pamlico County, the water surge, the storm surge. So we pulled together a quick weekend impromptu regatta where we paired up a regatta and a cleanup weekend, invited teams from Mesa and SAISA, anybody who would drive into town. And we had a great regatta. I mean, we had great conditions on Saturday, and then on Sunday, everybody worked real hard, clearing debris, helping folks move stuff. It was great. I think has earned, I think, a lot of goodwill in that community. And lastly, the spot we've kind of most recently claimed on the SAISA calendar is our spring mixer. So this year we held it in February, scheduled it as a 2-day event. Day 1 was pretty light. Day 2 was freezing rain. And so we ended up, consensus among all regatta participants was to, instead of have a mixer, to instead have brunch. So everybody came over, and Georgia and I think another one of the teams took over my kitchen and almost burned it down, but cooked brunch for everybody. So the mixer was on theme. All these things are a lot of fun for us. You know, there's a lot of stress, but the universities recognize us. You know, we've won club event of the year 3 times in a row. Or not in a row, excuse me, twice in a row, 3 times overall. And you need to figure out what happened that 1 year off. There are a couple of things, a few hallmarks to our events and that I'd like to point out, and I'll share those with you, and I'll try and tell you some of my inside baseball. Here's what we're going to talk about tonight. Talk about basic considerations about a regatta, like why have a regatta? A little bit of how to organize it and pay for it. Some sponsors talk. We'll talk a little bit about sponsoring an event, promoting the event. That's a huge part of this. And then how do you kind of tie in characteristics beyond sailing? Then growing your event once you're on the calendar and you're out of the gate. And then I'll give you some unsolicited advice, which is worth every penny paid for it. So why host a home regatta? What is the motivation? Are you aiming to raise awareness of your program? To what audience? Is it your college sailing audience? Is it a college administration, your broader college audience, your students and prospective students, your fellow classmates. Is it a local community? You want to engage the local community. It could be a spotlight on a facility or a new fleet. These are some of the reasons you might want to have a regatta. The next thing you want to figure out is it a fundraising regatta? The answer to this next question is going to drive a lot of your activity and decisions downstream from this start line. What level of event do you aim to build? Do you want to build a developmental event? Are you coming out of the gate trying to make it an interconference? I think you'll find there's a progression involved no matter what you plan to build. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. At a bare minimum, you've got to deliver a quality product. You've got to run a regatta that people, they want to sail. They want to participate and compete. Professionalism from the host team and race administration is going to build that trust. We can't control wind and conditions, but we can run an organized event. We can be vigilant about a square course without driving everybody crazy. But really try and ensure that it's kind of part of ensuring people have a good experience. I think that's important when you first get a regatta going. What about your venue? Is your venue appropriate for the type of regatta you want to host? Is it a small regatta on a small lake where we've seen some success, or do you have to move to a bigger space with a larger fleet? If you have a venue host, in our case it's a county park. Some folks have yacht clubs or sailing centers. If you have a venue host, engage them about the event. At a bare minimum, you'll have them on board as less of a headache for you to actually do the event. Best case, you may find some sponsorship dollars or other cooperation from having reached out. So that's always, I think, a big recommendation of facilities. Your fleet's a big part of the equation. Is your fleet in good enough shape to hold a regatta? That will depend on how, what kind of regatta you want to hold. Do you have sails, the right rigging? Is it balanced for one design? These are all the questions we're going to ask about a fleet before we sign up for a regatta. If you can't meet those things, scale your ambitions to suit. There are also charter opportunities, and that's something that brings additional costs into question. Like I said, make sure you cover the regatta basics. Have a race committee, first of all. Have a trained race committee, and someone who knows what's going on. Plan in the right support on and off the water. You have enough people on the team to not only host and compete. That's a balance you're going to have to strike. Do you have the right equipment? Do you have marks? Do you have a start box? How's the regatta going to be organized? These are a lot of the questions you're going to have to decide. Is it a team race, a match race, one division or two divisions combined? How do you want to set this up? And then make sure you have the actual tech score account properly set up. That's a big part of getting the regatta going. And a lot of the tech score process will actually guide you through some of what you need to consider. Larger geographic conferences, like ours, we have to take into account travel and then therefore housing. So how far are you asking a team to travel? Will they be traveling for one day for a 2-day event, or one day, for a 1-day event? And then what housing options do visiting teams? A lot of club programs, so you see sailors hosting others in their houses or apartments. Are there affordable hotels nearby? If there are hotels, it's always good to reach out to them. Have a couple that you reach out to and see about setting up a preferred rate. So when you put out an NOR, you can say, here's some housing options. A lot of universities have those rates, and they can extend it to visiting teams. But if not, go bang on the door at a hotel near campus and talk to one of the managers. I think you'll be surprised how quickly they'll work to support you. Another approach that we use is providing housing for visiting sailors and coaches in the community. So volunteering to host teams, donating houses, sponsoring hotel rooms. That is a burdensome model. We love doing what we do in Oriental. The infrastructure on hotels isn't there. So it really is our only model. But from a logistics and sort of organization standpoint, that's probably one of the biggest challenges to that event. Look at the schedule. This is a big part. We've actually started to see a fairly packed, non-COVID world, race schedule in SAISA and interconference over the last couple of years. But there's a rhythm to the college sailing series. not only, first of all, is it a fall event or a spring event? But also, like, is it a developmental, is it a very high level event early in the season, or is it a developmental event? Think about that rhythm. Think about what other SAISA events are going on, and what other events are going on outside the conference. What conflicts can you avoid, I think, is the right approach to go into that. Something you'll also have to think about with your venue. What conflicts can you avoid there? Other regattas, yacht club conflicts, club events for your sailing club. Ask try and find out, does your regatta fill a void? Like we built out our women's regatta to fill a void, and I think there's still great opportunity to host more competitive and developmental women's events in SAISA. So that's a niche that's out there. Lastly, this is important too, does it fit your community schedule or your facility schedule? Is there a home football game? Or is SAISA Champ scheduled the weekend at Georgia, Florida and Jacksonville? That's a big consideration. Hotels, traffic, Florida man, everywhere you can imagine. And Georgia man for that matter. So, is there a boat show that weekend? That's one of those questions I like to ask, because sometimes there's an opportunity there. Like our recently canceled 2020 spring Oriental event, we were paired up with the boat show. So there's some synergies there, for lack of corporate jargon. Yeah, just check it out on the schedule. You've got to find the right fit for that event. I think that's really the start. Regattas can be expensive. That's even more so the case when you have a facility or fleet chartering costs. We have our home fleet in Raleigh with just 8 boats. But when we build out to a bigger event in Oriental, we had no option but to charter a fleet. Now, granted, it's from a great local sailing center. Like Bowdistern is awesome. And they've become, they've been a partner in our event there, organizing and promoting from the very beginning. But get your fleet in order. Check it out. Clean the boatyard. Get the rigging and repair stuff. That's a full team effort. That's not just your fleet captain, but that's a full team effort, especially in advance of hosting a regatta. The decision you have to make is, another one is food. You have food for your competitors. That could be breakfast. That could be prepared lunches. We try and do bagels at our events in the morning. So that's adding a cost. You add a feature, you add a draw, you're going to add a little bit of a cost too. Like I said, think about that, but also think about promotional costs. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing one year was in Oriental, we did these Snapchat backgrounds, and at the risk of sounding like, like, hey kids, it was easy to use. You could geofence it. And I think we had a lot of fun with it that year. So very easy to do, literally like probably $15 budget. But get creative on things like that. Posters and flyers cost money. That's one thing that you have to decide, but social media advertising may even be relevant. I know a lot of folks in our conference that do social media have, a very good understanding of that. So always reach out to your peers too, if you're thinking about how to promote something. This is my captain in charge, Paulina, a couple of years ago at our women's regatta. This is my son, who's now 5. But students are going to be absolutely, if you have a coach, it's awesome. But this is a doable thing for students, but you got to have your team behind you. And you're going to organize and compete. So have extra volunteers. Don't do it with a bare minimum. Approach yacht clubs, sailing orgs, even local alumni. We generally will have local alumni involved. One word of warning on volunteer race committees. Sometimes they have a hard time scaling back the formality of their RCing. They want to raise flags and blow whistles and shoot cannons because it says so in the racing rules. But scaling it back to the college model is sometimes challenging. It helps to have people with boats, aside from just RC, mark boats, safety boats, the committee boat, of course. And then, how do you organize it? Like I said, there's a team effort. There's lots of resources. Use an online spreadsheet. We have job signups with very explicit descriptions of what the job is, so there's no confusion. And then duplicate the people that sign up for it. You know, one year our water boy was a no-show, and so we had to have a backup. You know, and that happens. It helps to have people on shore in charge of activities. You know, this could be playing bags like you've got Maddie and Victoria doing here, or it could be, you know, talking about rotations, getting the shoreside folks informed that rotations are coming up, so they're quick and efficient. Making sure people are comfortable, bathrooms are here, this kind of stuff. Onshore grilling is even a great way to like engage the club side of your program. Have them host or sponsor the kind of lunch and you guys grill out. We've done that and that's been a lot of fun. Gopher, I cannot overstate the importance of having a gopher. This is someone who goes for this, goes for that. Someone has a car. Someone who has a car that you can say, I need you to go to CVS and buy, you know, 3 orange hats and a tennis sneaker, and they're going to do it. Whatever you need during a regatta, last minute, have a gopher. So that's huge advice right there. What else here? Regatta briefing. You know, we kind of do a dry session, classroom session beforehand, talk about details, the flow of the event. Really get prepped when you host an event. I will also highly recommend that when you find people with boats, you try and find people to drive photographers around. You know, if you offer your student media or photography club or just some people you know who take photos the chance to shoot your regatta, you will be surprised how many will sign up and be very pumped about it. Now, you may not get great photos, but you may also get great photos. Good photos are a huge resource for marketing and events, program, you name it. Building a slideshow like this, I went down the rabbit hole of photos for the last couple of years. And as a conference, our photo kind of sophistication has improved much to as a result of folks like Allison Chenard being in charge of that stuff. So I'll give her some props. This is a photo boat from our women's regatta. In the background, you'll see Miss Wolf in a boat. We literally had 2 boats full of photographers. Student media, there were some grad students doing photography plans. I mean, we had all kinds of stuff. So it was fun. You know, this is as safe as you want to risk it when you fill a boat full of photographers, but that's a huge thing for a regatta. Try and do that. And there's lots of ways to do it free, do it cheap, and bring in people who want to be involved anyways. So if you chose the sponsorship route, you need to approach it closest to your program and then expand your horizons outward. The caveat there is that the further you go out, the lower chance you're going to have of success. So I say start local. You heard me say that earlier. You know, are there parents on the team with businesses? Are there alumni in your community with businesses? You know, if not, start with local businesses where you know folks. You know, someone on the team works there, or the team likes to hang out there. These are your closest connections, and these are the people who are most likely already familiar with your program to some degree. As you go out further, you know, you're going to be asking different questions. You're going to be asking, what can your event or your program offer to benefit a sponsor? You know, is it visibility? Is it access to your audience? An endorsement? This is going to help you guide what you ask and how you ask it. So consider that when you think about that. Look to businesses who serve the college students, you know, where your audience of actual participants is part of your draw, attractive to their marketing. So this circle includes like restaurants, especially near campus, food, delivery services, apartment complexes, companies like that, bookstores, booster stores. If we've got a Wolfpack store that's not the student bookstore, but gyms, hotels. You know, there's a healthy lifestyle element to sailing, and then, you know, hotels are places to stay. So maybe you are able to build that relationship better. Here's a little life hack on sort of on the topic of hotels. And I'll go back, sorry. Often local hospitality taxes, the little numbers you see at the bottom of your receipt from the Magnuson when you go to St. Pete, is hospitality tax. Those sometimes go into, or a lot of times, fund tourism development efforts. So like a visitor bureau, we have a sports and visitors bureau in Raleigh. You know, and regattas as an event will bring people to your town. Now it could be like 10 people, but in the case of like something like Oriental, you know, we're pushing bringing 150 people into a small community. So there's some economic impact there. We've developed, it's not a football game, right? But it's something. We've developed a really great alliance with the organization in Raleigh, the Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance. They're a part of the Convention and Visitor Bureau. So look around your area to find things like that that might have funding that is literally dedicated to stuff like this. Again, you're getting further away from your direct connections, so you can find some businesses who maybe support the university and leverage that in your angle. You know, as you get further out and you're not football or basketball, that where the university approach is less successful. So kind of temper your expectations. You can see on our women's event at the bottom, this little thing, you know, we have a bank and we have a apartment complex, you know, price company, they do student apartments. And then the bottom three, you know, are kind of, we had Zyke sponsors and Kind Bars. So that's kind of local and that fits that healthy lifestyles approach. Up on the top, we've got our Oriental events. That's a completely different dynamic because that's very much a sailing focused town. So there's a blend of like sailing niche and community support. So that one's an interesting one to do sponsorship with. If you want to leverage sailing itself as a draw for sponsors, you know, you can go in two directions. You, like with our Oriental event, to some degree, you can go to sailing companies, sailing lofts, boat dealerships, or you go in the other direction and more of the lifestyle side, Sperry, you know, local preppy clothing stores. Those are the kinds of things that want to be associated with sailing. I've not yet pulled off our local like Sperry or Lily store for sponsorship. So this is still on my plan of like to try and pull off. You got to realize there are two kinds of sponsorships. You know, there's a financial sponsorship, which is very helpful. And then there's in-kind sponsorship, which are very helpful as long as you're thinking about them right and using them right. They're both good, like I said. We've had some great in-kind donors. You know, like I said, Kind Bar gave us bars for all of our participants for a couple of years at our event. You know, with some goodie bags for all the participants. And that's kind of a cool value add that brings in that college audience as a good experience. You know, one year our bagel shop threw in breakfast because they knew we kept ordering from them each year. We had our apartment complex sponsor actually used one of their vans that wasn't in use that they do for like campus delivery. And on the weekend, they ran a shuttle between campus and our regatta, which was awesome because getting people to a regatta from campus is a thing to do. Transportation's a big issue. I'm not going to get into capital fundraising. That's a whole nother ballgame. More tied into like facilities or fleets. Definitely not the kind of thing you're going to deal with in an event case. But there are two approaches you've got to think about in any kind of, you know, approach for sponsorship. You're going to have a personal approach, sort of informal, or a formal approach. And really, they're both asks in some way. One is more focused. It could even be a focused conversation with a proposal. You just have to be prepared to kind of know who you're asking, understand how maybe they get a lot of sponsorship requests. Maybe they have a portal. You can log on and try that. Now, those aren't that successful. You know, like West Marine does that to you. If you try and approach your local West Marine, they're going to put you into their national portal. Good luck. But, you know, it's worth looking into. You know, we've built out some proposals when we talk to a bank. You know, the other thing that I'll do, and I'm happy to share this, you know, be willing to put together some documentation that says, these are the levels of sponsorship and this is how we recognize you. A lot of organizations will ask for a sponsorship levels and you can make them up. Just make up some crazy ask, make up this crazy ask, $2,000, you know, and stratify it down and give them some interesting stuff. You know, like we put on a clinic, so we had a sponsor for that clinic. And then we have our sustainability sponsor. And then so we talk a lot about sustainability in our program. So this is some stuff, some resources I'm willing to share with you. You don't have to start from scratch, but be prepared to create that kind of stuff. Another important consideration is, how do you recognize a sponsor? You know, how are you thanking them and making it worth their while, you know, to some degree? Are you giving them a plaque or merch like a burgee? Are you going to put up a sign at the event? It may be all of the above. Maybe they have an info booth at your event. Like I said, promos for sailors in a goodie bag. They might want social media endorsements. You know, they want you to be promoting their ride sharing service or whatever it happens to be to your audience. You know, for our event level sponsors, you know, one of my favorite things to do is to have a little opening ceremony. And it's not normal for college sailing. Like, I know that. But and I think if you've been to one of our regattas and you've been through our opening ceremony, it's basically a fancy skipper's meeting. We thank our sponsors. Sometimes we'll let them speak. This is one of our sponsors from Raleigh, Sports Alliance, speaking. She was so thrilled to be there. She was like, I'm glad I'm done speaking. Can I go out on the boat? And as you see how much wind we had early that day, it was a riveting regatta. Sometimes it'll be, you know, they want to sponsor food. There's all kinds of ways to recognize a sponsor and put those resources they give you into that regatta budget or operation. So this goes without saying, right? But promotion is huge. And not just establishing your event, but growing the event. You have to promote it. And you've got to identify the audience you want to reach and then tailor your promotion efforts to suit it. So first of all, you know, we want to build regattas that teams want to race at. They want to participate in your event. So this means that they're going to pick your event in our SAISA draft, in the schedule draft. But be ready. You know, you may have to do some politicking and reach out individually and say, hey, you guys should totally attend, you know, and do a little bit of that follow-up team to team, you know, if they're not signing up. You know, a great resource that is right in front of our nose in the college sailing community is your regatta scores and your regatta summaries on TechScore. This is your chance after you have your first event to tell the story of your event. And you'd be surprised, people will read it. I mean, I don't know if you guys are like this, but you know, if I'm sitting at a computer and I'm kind of brain dead, I'm typing in scores.collegesailing.org just by habit. This year has been heartbreaking, right? But you're going to read, maybe I'm a dork, but you're going to read about other regattas. And this is a chance to get in front of some eyeballs. And they may say, hey, that sounds awesome. Like, let's put that on our pick list for next year. Don't underestimate that. If you want to bring out spectators and fans, you know, this is a completely different approach. You've got to think about things like access to the waterfront, finding a good vantage point for the event. But also here's a little tip, have one or two of your team members on shore who can explain, even proactively, what's happening on the water. You know, the learning curve on dinghy racing is there, but once you know a little bit of what's going on, you know, you can share that understanding with your spectators. You know, one of the questions we got at an earlier regatta was, well, how come NC State is in all the boats? Because our sails had NC State on them, right? Quick education and folks get it, you know? And so having a couple sailors on shore, that's always a great way to engage some folks if you have that spectator audience and you're trying to bring that in. Maybe you want to engage your university audience. You know, you want to raise administrative awareness of your program. You want to find ways to, hey, university, we're here. Maybe you're like a club program that's ambitious to go varsity. You got to start to build those relationships. I'm going to steal a page from UVA Sailing's book. You know, they invited their dean of students to join them for a regatta. They put him on a boat, made sure he had a great experience, you know, and involved him in the trophy ceremony. And he has been involved, actively involved with UVA Sailing ever since. You know, at NC State, we've done kind of a similar thing with Dean Stafford, who's a really wonderful longtime dean of students at our university. It's just convenient that we happen to win this trophy and that I'm a UVA alumni, so I especially enjoyed this, but that's a great way to do it, you know. there's lots of platforms. There's lots of platforms that ways you can reach your audience. Social media is a huge part, and I'm sure you have ample experience or interest from team members on helping there. But one of the things that I think is important is make that material not just about your event. Like try and tie in their connection. So I love using Burgies. This is something that they might want to share now because their Burgies on it, and they're saying to their crowd, we're participating in this event. Make it easy for them. On-campus promotion is great. We have a free expression tunnel. The team and the club always gets together and spray paints the tunnel before an event. You might have similar things, or just get out with a boat. This is like universal advice. Bring a boat on campus when you can. Great for recruiting, visibility, you name it. Try and engage students in hand. In this case, we're doing Instagram photos, we're handing out posters, and we're inviting people to come to our women's event. This is a part of recognizing sponsors. All this stuff ties together, right? But yeah, on the water boat, on campus boats, you can't beat it. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna go back one, because my last bit of advice here is, we'll talk about posters and flyers because that's one of my favorite things, but there are tons of talented students in college sailing. Like the resources that are available in the SAISA community alone, skill sets that you could connect to and ask for help. It's unbelievable. And so with that, I hope we all know Allison Chenard. She's a photographer to star athletes, from Muhammad Ali to whomever. I don't know. So I was going to try and name some famous athletes, but Allison's awesome. She made this great video for us in preparation to promote our 2020 Oriental Regatta, and COVID killed that, but let's take an awesome look at this video. Bear with me here. All right, hit me up in the chat if this doesn't work. Let's start. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too bad. I will go ahead and post the link in the chat, so you guys can go check it out on YouTube at your leisure. Here's the link right there. It's awesome, Allison. Thank you for doing that. I'm sorry that it has taken till now to see the light of day, but again, these are like resources you've got right at your fingertips. How's everybody doing? I don't like talking to empty rooms, so it's kind of hard. Everybody good? All right, we're gonna keep going. Skip this slide, there we go. This is just a quick little, nope, wrong slide. Sorry, everybody. There we go. Cool. All right, let's keep talking about promotion. If you have a mascot, invite them. It's a blast, first of all, but also it's great for your event, for your program, for your marketing. Mascots are usually organized through cheerleading programs and athletics, student activities maybe, but usually through like the cheerleading program. Sometimes there's a form to request an appearance. Sometimes there's a cost, like I think it costs us $75 to have our mascot come out for like a 3-hour block or something. But it's well worth it if you want to engage your outside audience, you want to leverage your university connection for that audience, or engage community. You know, that's a good way to do it with the mascot. It's also awesome for photos if they want to get in a boat. And I'm disappointed to say that getting Miss Wolf in a boat at our women's regatta was not my idea. It was Miss Wolf's idea, but it's still one of my favorite things that's ever happened. So if you have your mascot out there, make sure you have a photographer. Make sure you have a bunch of them. But here's a shot, probably the other side of that photo that, you know, behind the scenes. Media and press outreach. We do a ton of media and press outreach, and that can mean all kinds of different things. You know, getting in touch with the media before the event and after the event. You'll have an opportunity to promote the event. Usually media outlets are looking for content, and you'll find some space. And then giving them on-water access, you know, getting them out on the water is really helpful. Saying to that editorial board or the news desk, you know, we have this event, photographers have water access with a dedicated driver. You know, that might be the hook. You know, we've paired up with our student media. There's a lot that you can do with student media and print and video. You know, this is the back of the Technician, our printed like once or twice a week campus newspaper. Their whole back cover was our women's poster one year. And we just set that up with them as an in-kind donation to, you know, to the team. We have PAC TV. I don't know if you have these kinds of like closed channel, campus focused things at your school, but that is, you know, a great resource. Local press is awesome. This was one of our early events on WRAL, which is like the big TV station in the area. A couple other TV things, coverage on our Oriental event. Local press. Niche media. Let's talk about sailing media. You know, there's an outlet to the broader sailing community, whether it's through social media with something like, you know, connecting the U.S. Sailing college outreach through the SOX a couple of years ago. You know, that we tied that into our event where everybody wore their socks, and, you know, U.S. Sailing turned around and promoted our event. So things like that. We wrote to Sailing World about our first clean regatta. You know, just included them in our press efforts. And you can look up a lot of press, you can look up a lot of email addresses and press lists. Chalk Talk, when that used to be a thing, Chris Love used to do college sailing Chalk Talk. And that was a great news outlet that I think a lot of folks watched. There's podcasts, you know, and we've actually had some regatta promos on some podcasts that are around college sailing. So stuff like that. I'll also give you some unsolicited advice that I have a whole slide of it, but reach out to local media and student media when you have good news, not just to promote your event, but anytime something good happens. A couple of years ago, we won a trophy regatta up in Virginia. we won a regatta that, we just won a regatta, and we sent a press release, and WRAL picked it up in their like college grab bag or college recap. And you also get gems like this wonderful gem from NC State student newspaper that state sailing wins national championship. Now, the rest of the article doesn't say anything about that, but clearly the headline writer wasn't reading the article. So that's one of my all-time favorites, and I might have like 100 copies of that, squirreled away in my attic. I talked about this earlier. One of my favorite things to do is posters, and I'll dork out on this a little bit. I don't know if you guys know Kiel Week. It's like a German sailing week thing, but they've had these very sort of avant-garde, abstract sailing posters for this event for years. And so I was really inspired by that when we first started having events. And I reached out to a graphic designer friend of mine, shared my inspiration with a couple of like links, like check this stuff out, and then let him work with it. And I was amazed. You see these bottom right two posters. This is what came out of that year for the Triangle Tango. And I love that it's like, it progresses, especially this bottom right one. The progression here from good until to evil, I mean, from red into blue, tying in those university colors. I love that subtlety there. So anyways, we took this idea and we ran with it. We started to approach local artists, graphic designers with the ideas of like a commission design. We would tell them right off the bat, we don't have a lot of money, but we will promote the heck out of your design. And some folks, that's the right offer. That's the right thing. It fits what they're interested in. So sometimes we had like a $50 to $100 budget for this, and you can make it go a long way. I love giving artists a little direction and then let them blow you away with creativity. So I can't even pick a favorite on some of these. In the event that you don't have an artist, sailing photos and some Photoshop can do wonders. So our Oriental events, we haven't been able to replicate the same model of getting like a designer involved early. So we've just been making it in-house. And they don't look too great, but they don't look too bad either. This women's event poster from a couple years ago is amazing. So that's a hallmark for our events. I don't mind people stealing it. I think it's great. We distribute them all over campus. They're a great place to recognize sponsor logos for number of eyeballs that they reach. And folks leave a regatta with a poster, and that's pretty awesome. So here's our most recent one, kind of back to the abstract concept for Triangle Tango, but didn't fit on the slide. So. There's a lot to think about beyond sailing. We're really focused in our events on sustainability. It's not just how we run the event, like as a clean regatta, but the platform it gives us to talk about conservation, sustainability in our sport, and when we have that community audience. That's something that's important to us. You can hold a regatta to benefit a charity or in tandem with community service. I said that's something we've done. Have a food drive at your event. Bring cans of food to the regatta. Things like that. Really trying to draw attention, interest, get creative. I'll say tinker with the equation here. So we tried this with our tango this past winter. What about an event with one division women's, one division co-ed, and a third division with lasers that's also open to community laser sailors? We tried it. It kind of worked. We found out that late in the season, it was hard for teams to field both women, like a women's skipper, without pulling from other events. So we worked around that. But the laser division was interesting. There was lots of carnage. I'll show you some pictures. That's kind of our sustainability stuff. I think I have the laser photo in here. No, I don't. It's somewhere in here. But there was carnage on the course. But it was, it was tweaking the model, was seeing what can we do to make our regatta interesting, draw attention, draw participation. Some regattas use a perpetual trophy, like what I talked about with the Jefferson Cup up in Virginia, and that's a newer regatta. That's a regatta that they just made a trophy for and said, we're going to do this. It's not the Dellenbaugh that's been around 100 years, but it has some differentiation there. We use these kind of 3D printed trophies that we do with recycled materials. It fits our kind of messaging and what we're committed to. and I think they're really cool. You can give them to sponsors too. Kind of the next thing you can do is, sorry, I keep missing this spot here. Harness your university's like passionate hatred for those other, community schools. Like this was why with the tango started. We practiced occasionally with Duke, but what if we got these three regattas together, these three teams together for a regatta? And our less engaged audiences, they love to know when we beat Duke or beat Carolina, even if they have no idea what that means. So I think, a lot of your bigger schools, that might be relevant to your school culture. So try and make that, take that to your advantage. Shoreside activities are important, but positive experiences come from creature comforts, right? Shoreside comfort, places to sit, covered areas, access to restrooms, a big ball to swing on, space heaters. Like I said, the tango is freezing this year. The space heater was a hit. For our larger events in Oriental, we started hosting a barbecue in tandem with the regatta. It's been a great addition to our Oriental events. We include all the sailors and coaches for free. They come and eat. And then we sell tickets to the community, and that helps support the event, the barbecue. The best we try and do with that is to break even. But they buy a ticket or a plate. We've had a live band, some great, one year not that great, but that's something you can add to your events. I try and find things that our varsity teams can also participate in. They have a lot of sort of social restrictions, but if you have dinner for all regatta participants, they get to participate. And I think there's some inclusivity that is good karma for club teams to push back towards the varsity side. Another thing is, let me see if I can switch to this. Yeah, when you have all these folks in town, when we first started regattas, we tried to figure out what else was going on in Raleigh at that time. Because, Raleigh is a draw, right? Maybe wherever you are is a draw. We would go to the Wake County Speedway the night before the tango with the Duke team and the UNC team. And that is a cultural experience, but that was a part of the early part of that regatta. It made it special. It made it something you wanted to come back to. I like this little graphic, how it started and how it's going. So I love that little graphic to just show, building a regatta it takes time, but it's really rewarding. And, we've been pumped to keep growing Oriental. Grow the event, focus on that positive experience. That can't underestimate the eyes that Tech Score brings in to your events. And then follow up with your supporters and sponsors. Thank them after the event, tell them how it went, This is priming your next ask. And on the asks, our first regatta that we ever got a sponsor for was like a $500 sponsorship. It did not cover nearly what the event cost. But we've been able to add to that. And, where some of our events we could ask for a $2,000 sponsorship and it would be a valuable, proposition to a business. I'd like to push that to a bigger level. But again, baby steps there on scale of your event, not just the ask you make, but how big an event you start off with. We found that building what turned from a developmental event into what is becoming a more competitive event, that took time. And then add the extras. I've given you a lot of things you could do. Maybe try one or two of them that first year and add the extras the next year. Figure out what works for you and where you get that buy-in from your audience. This is our first tango in 2014, and this is our tango in 2018. So we love taking everybody at the regatta take a picture. I don't know why, but we do. Here's my unsolicited advice slide. That which can happen will happen. So you're working hard to get this regatta off the ground, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I believe in some fate there. The other thing you've got to recognize that at the start of the regatta, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. It took me a couple years to realize this, and my team now knows when I switch into this mode, but we over prepare, and I'm an anxious mess, and I'm sure they are too from just dealing with it. But over prepare and then relax. I hit the switch when the regatta starts. Still be aware of what's going on, but don't try and push, let's add this next thing and let's try for this new thing without having done the homework ahead of time. Last unsolicited advice, this is a lesson hard learned. Merchandise can make or break an event profitability. Merchandise costs money, t-shirts cost money. So on the front end, you have inventory, you sell out. The next year you buy more inventory and you don't sell out. You got a bunch of old t-shirts you got to get rid of. And there's the wave of that and trying to forecast interest. That's been the area where our Oriental Regatta has been most challenging financially. It's awesome to make merch because we get a lot of people that kind of want a t-shirt from that event. And I've heard the audience that wants a new design this year. I hear you. But that's a factor. So something to take into account. It's great if it works. It can be costly. Reach out if you need anything more on events, on regattas. We're happy to share templates, resources. And I'm going to do a last promo and then we can wrap up. If there are any chat questions or any questions, jump in the chat, or we can do a little talk afterwards. But tune in later this week, Thursday. Don Riley is going to be speaking about cross-training to improve college sailing and sailing to improve your future self. And Dawn's a great sort of motivational speaker. So I'm really excited to have her participating and supporting the series. Thank you all for joining me to talk about something I love doing, and hope we can make your regatta, your SAISA regatta, your interconference the best it can be. One of the hallmarks of SAISA is it's a great place to sail, great place to compete, and these regattas add in, they factor in. So I think we can all kind of benefit our programs, benefit the conference. But thanks again. All right, any questions? All right, well, I am going to go ahead and stop recording. And